All right, guys, morning live from the Instagrams. Shaky while I'm in the car. Got to go through these back bumpy roads. So let's get a couple people in here, and then it's time to crush this live. If you're just popping in, thanks for stopping by. How shaky is that video? I'm gonna have to get a new one of these cameras that goes a little bit more tight to the dash, but oh well. The information is the information. See some deer here on the side of the road. Very cool. So here's the interesting thing about New Jersey. You're 5 minutes to the beach, 5 minutes to the farms, 5 minutes to the hood. 45 minutes to the city, New York City or Philadelphia. Depends where you live, though. That has typically been the story of my life. So I want to do a little bit of a follow-up. I've got a podcast called The Spartan Way. It's with the Spartan Up podcast. And the recent episode that went up is called Are You a Clock Puncher? Or Don't Be a Clock Puncher. And I shared the story of how I got Employee of the Month way back in the day. I think it was 1995, maybe 96. Employee of the Month while working at Costco for only 3 weeks. Back then it was called Price Club for anybody who's my age. And before that, I have memories of working at a pizzeria where the owner was a very intense Sicilian guy, and I remember he showed me how to wash the toilet with my hands. With a rag and my hands, and he dropped an F-bomb, every fourth or fifth word. But before that, I'd say that the foundation of going above and beyond came from wrestling. What's the bottom line is I remember hearing Dan Gable say it so much. I used to watch his video called Competitor Supreme. It was on VHS, and I didn't even own a VHS player, so I'd go to my friend's house and watch it every night. And Dan Gable consistently said, outwork the competition, outwork your opponent. Now, down the road, that could get dangerous if you're not doing things the smart way. But what I learned was, especially as a gym owner and a strength coach, and even my early days of being a trainer, before I even knew what a strength coach was, I learned that if you just do what's in the job description, there will be no fanfare for you. And I tend to have these memories of things where I worked at a hospital fitness center, and we were a real tight-knit group of trainers working together. And one guy, he had a college degree. We had, the crew of us that were trainers there did not have the college degree yet. And what was interesting is the guy that had the highest college degree there, minus the manager, was the laziest. And he would just sit on the phone all the time. And I'll never forget seeing a line of like 13 or 15 people waiting at the desk for people to get their blood pressure, because we were connected to the cardiac rehab. And he was just sitting there on the chair ignoring them. And we remember seeing this for days and weeks, and then for months it went on. And people complained about it and brought it up to our manager, who was the nicest guy. He would not call anybody out. He just wouldn't. And I remember we had a team meeting about, like an excellence meeting, what it takes. And it was amazing how this guy was like saying, this is what it takes, this is what it takes. Yet he was the very guy that we were having the meeting about. So long story short, I remember seeing him on the chair, and it was like a chair that you could kind of like stretch back on, an office chair. And he had been doing it for so many months on the phone, just being a clock puncher, collecting a paycheck, but not working. He's leaning back, and then the chair goes bang, it breaks. And I was just like, man, that is what happens. And he was embarrassed because there was people waiting online to get their blood pressure taken. And he had been doing this for months, just ignoring people. And in this day, 2018, now that I've got my own gym, I've seen this a lot with guys that are interning and guys that even work. and I've had communication with the old university that I attended for undergrad, and while trying to get interns, they said our concern is that we don't have an intern who's actually going to work hard and thrive in your environment. We don't feel like they're going to survive. They'll get kicked out. So what does it mean to not be a clock puncher? So it means you simply go above and beyond. You can't even put that into words. So you don't have to wait for something to be your job. You don't have to wait for something to be asked of to get done. You see something that needs to get done, that improves the overall environment, the overall workplace that you're in, you get it done. And even if you don't know how to do it, you find a way to get it done. A story, got a lot of stories. I was hired as a contractor for a certain position, and this is not at the college level. This is not the college position. And they paid me to do a certain thing. I loved the guy that I was working for, and he said, how about we include this thing, and you handle like the web aspect of this? And I said, absolutely. You know, like I'm just not gonna say no. Now, there's a difference in people taking advantage of you versus you going above and beyond, and you got to know that difference. But if you're in the right place and you know that you're in the right place, like, or even if you're not in the right place, what happens when there is how am I going to give a recommendation for you for your next job? Am I going to say you're lazy, or am I going to say you're a workhorse, you're highly reliable, you're accountable, you're responsible? You know, what am I going to say about you? And to me, that's the ticket. That's what I want to see. I want to see the workhorses. Who is willing to go beyond normal? Who has a standard of excellence versus who has a standard of good, just good enough? So, food for thought. I mean, if you're questioning if you're a clock puncher, you are a clock puncher. Automatic, you're a clock puncher. How do you know you're not a clock puncher? Because people ask you, like, man, where do you get all that energy from? How do you do all that work? Where does this, dedication and intensity and discipline come from? You don't look at it as some strange trait that you have. You look at it as, wow, I just thought that's the way I'm supposed to work. I'm supposed to get after it. I'm supposed to do an awesome job. And you know when you'll do it? When you genuinely care. When you genuinely care. And that's probably the very thing that has fired me up from day one about being a teacher and about being a coach, is that I knew and understood that this is deeper than strength and conditioning. It's deeper than exercise. And I look back to when I did it was called Junior Field Experience, which is an internship of once a week. And I was in an inner city, and I would show up early because the kids had hot breakfast, or like free breakfast. So the cafeteria was packed with kids who were getting oatmeal or simply a bowl of cereal in one of those little boxes. And I remember seeing kids in the wintertime show up with a sweat jacket, show up without a jacket, with pants and a t-shirt. And I was like, wow, being part of a school, we have an obligation where it needs to be the best part of their day. If it is not the best part of their day, we don't know what the home life is, right? Could be good, could be middle of the road, could be bad, could be ups and downs, just like everybody else has. But the more I get into the teaching, the more I get into the coaching, you realize that the surface is what your job title is. Strength conditioning coach. That's just a surface word. That's why I talk about the strong life. Because how can strength be developed beyond the gym? Only when you go above and beyond. When you're not a clock puncher. When you're not a clock puncher. I've got a lot more stories about people I've worked with that either inspired me or proved to me how to not work. I'm going to give you the last one. Last story. I was midway through graduate school. I was teaching, coaching, and in the summertime, I picked up a job at a local bar. I became a bartender, but it was a very old school bar, and this is like the year 2000. Yep, because I think I was a second year teacher, so 98, 99, yep, 2000. And I go there, I tell them I don't drink, I don't know anything about how to make drinks, but I was told that you hire all the teachers, and I will learn whatever I need to learn, and I will work my face off. So the guy said, yeah, I like you, the owner, Pete. And he said, come in on Saturday, that'll be your training day. And you're gonna work Saturday from 6 p.m. till 3 a.m. And I got trained one day. And then the next time I came in, I was on my own. And I remember somebody asked me for the drink called a screwdriver, which is a very simple drink. It's orange juice and vodka. And I had to like walk to the liquor store that was connected to the bar. And I said, what's in a screwdriver? And one of the bartenders was like, oh man. So from that night on, I was so embarrassed of myself that I went to the bookstore. I purchased books on all the drinks and how to be a bartender. Then I made a gazillion index cards and I studied them all week. So if it was summertime, I'm off from teaching. I went to the beach, I was studying stuff. And it was like that next week, I was a changed man. I learned how to become a bartender through a book on my own. Now, here's where I talk to you about the clock puncher part. I would come in at 6 or 7. The guy before me was finishing his shift. He was an older guy in his 60s, and he would never restock the fridge. So I would get there and I'd have to go to the big fridge and get many cases of beer. Then I'd have to go to the basement, which was out in front of the bar, under the sidewalk. I'd have to lift the cover, go down these like broken up stairs, and basically carry these loaded kegs. A year later, they finally created a beer tap through the floor, but I remember going in there at the end of his shift and carrying like 3 or 4 full kegs outside before my shift started. But what did we do on Saturday night? We'd work until 3 a.m. We'd restock the entire bar, everything, all the refrigerators, top to bottom, clean everything. So the next group that would come in Sunday morning, especially for football season, they just show up and ready to go. That guy was being a clock puncher. He didn't help the person coming after, but he wanted everybody to help him. So my shift was 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. and I started showing up at 6 p.m. to do the work that he was supposed to do to make sure that we were ready for the night shift, which is when a band would play on Saturday nights. Don't be a clock puncher. Nothing worse than being lazy. Nothing worse than leaving a mess behind you. Nothing worse than, oh, that's not in my job description. We don't do that. I don't do that. If you're part of a team, you do that work. You don't worry about what's in your job description. You find a way to get it done. And that's the difference between good and great. Don't be a clock puncher. I posted that video, or I've shared it on my Facebook, Instagram, but go to the Spartan Up podcast on YouTube and you will see my video on Don't Be a Clock Puncher. I also posted up our new Strong Life podcast today on my blog. It's linked up, and I spoke about the top 3 takeaways from the Strong Life experience, and I want to give you the rundown of them. Number 1 is don't deny your gut instincts. That's number 1. Number 2 is find or let your true north find you, okay? And number 3, I'm not telling you, you're going to have to listen to the podcast, but I did that podcast with Chris Perilli, who was one of the guest coaches at the Strong Life Experience, and we're releasing those recordings next week. But if you're coming to the Boston Strong Life Experience, I will send you those links as a bonus, $500 value, and early bird registration for the Boston Strong Life Experience ends tonight. You could save quite a lot of money. We've had 2 people sign up yesterday, so we got a couple more spots left, and I want them all filled. Why? because I know that the event is a life changer. We're going to be training together on Saturday night, plus a Viking dinner Saturday night. Then Sunday is all day strong life strategies and plan of attack. Myself, Joe DeSena of Spartan Race, CJ Murphy, Total Performance Sports. It's going to be awesome. Have an awesome day, guys. I appreciate you stopping by. If you have questions on the Strong Life experience, send me a direct message and I'll get back to you later on tonight. Peace out, guys.